Emotional control has changed my life, and I want to tell you the story of what I've done over the past, I'd say, 4 or so years that I've done to train this emotional strength. It was really important for me because I did used to be very mentally weak. I remember just getting offended over the smallest things. And this was when I was 14, which is okay when you're young, even 12 or 13. But I used to just use escapism in my life when I was met with adversity. I'd just escape through YouTube. I'd escape through video games. I'd escape through the virtual world, right? The first and biggest point that I want to make, and this is literally all you need to do to build emotional strength. This is literally the cornerstone of how I've been able to control my emotions and quit my bad habits and get successful at dopamine detoxing. It's meditation, right? You probably would have guessed that. I've just been doing this practice of deliberately focusing on my breath and then returning my focus back to my breath when I've found that I've been lost in thought. And this has done remarkable things for my life, right? It's just trained my mind to be more aware slash mindful because you're deliberately training your mind to be aware of the breath, so you automatically become aware and mindful of everything else. Instead of being captured by them, I can capture them. Compared to how it was before I started meditating, I literally didn't even know I had emotions. They'd just arise in my body and I was unaware, and then I'd just do something that would make people lose so much respect for me and would make me lose a lot of respect for myself. It had also helped me become more mindful of cravings that had arisen in my body when I was craving something, which has made me successful at dopamine detoxing. I still had to put in a lot of effort though to resist these things and deliberately use my discipline and willpower. Right, meditation did help me, but I did still have to use some of my own will. I'm at the position now where my own emotions literally just don't do anything to me, right? I can still remember how mentally weak I was before I began this. I used to just be all over the place. I was literally just doing bad habits all day. I would play video games for like 7+ hours a day and then just scroll on YouTube until 12 a.m. And that had really ruined my mindfulness and awareness because I remember in 2022, I began meditating in June of 2022. And I remember that I'd built up some good momentum for myself and I could feel like I could control my emotions better. And then I had like a 2 hour gaming session and my emotional control fell off after that. Control I couldn't even control my emotions after that. One thing I had to do was to stop video games and stop social media and stop all of these like easy dopamine habits because those were what had made me mentally weak in the first place. Because these things, they just destroy your emotional control. I can tell you my personal experience with gamer rage. Like, gamer rage is such an artificial emotion. It's such an extreme level of anger that you can't control and that you're not supposed to control. It really ruins your emotional integrity, and same goes for any bad habit that you do, such as social media. It's just such a big influx of emotions that is not natural for your brain at all. It really like ruins your emotional health. And it definitely did for me. I remember I used to just be all over the place. I was sad and then I was happy and then I was angry and then I was undisciplined and then I just did something stupid. And that had lost a lot of respect for me, respect for myself and respect from the people around me. I remember I used to get angry in the kitchen and just let my anger like release itself onto other people and get angry at other people because we were cooking and maybe we'd do something wrong that would conflict with each other, and I literally just couldn't control that anger, right? It was way too powerful for me. Lost respect. And also because I couldn't control my addictions, because I just wanted that escape from my emotions by using my addictions as vices. I remember I used to literally just go and binge eat chocolate because someone said something that was not even offensive, but I found it offensive because I was so mentally weak at that time. And I find that I get respect for myself when I am able to control my emotions, when I am exposed to something stressful and I am able to keep that stillness inside of me, as well as getting respect from other people. Now let's talk about stress. I have found that stress is a muscle in my body, right? It does get stronger when damaged. It does get stronger when exposed to pressure. You need to go through those emotional challenges and build that self-belief for yourself that you are able to control your emotions, that you can go through something that is emotional for you and come out the other side without having lost respect for yourself because you didn't give in. I found that a big example of this was learning how to drive. There were a lot of negative emotions that had come to me that I had to deal with when I learned how to drive. Right? It's just quite frustrating. There were things that had just pissed me off or scared me, or my instructor had said something and I had to learn how to validate my emotions. Right? Emotional validation is quite important, and I've learned this from the book The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. She says in the book that when you resist your emotions, they build up inside of you and they bottle up inside of you, which they will either just dissipate naturally or they'll break out in the form of an emotional breakdown. And you've got to learn how to validate your emotions so that they don't build up like that in the first place. There was this 3-step procedure that she mentions in the book that I have practiced myself, and that I did practice after I had driving lessons when I had all of this built up emotion inside of me. You've got to get clear on why that had bothered you so much, why that unfortunate circumstance had heightened your negative emotions so much. So I got clear on why what had happened was bothering me so much, and I learned how to validate how I was feeling by reminding myself that anyone else in my situation would also feel that way, and that they do. This had just really helped me to lighten the loads that I felt on myself by reminding myself that everyone else would experience the same emotions and that I'm not wrong for feeling this way. Right? You're putting yourself in the position. I was putting myself in the position of convincing myself that I was right to feel that way by reminding myself that anyone else would feel that way. And then the last step that I practiced from the book was I determined a course of action to take to get a better outcome so that that does not happen again. And this wasn't just with driving. I used to have like conflicts with family, and I used this 3-step procedure and it did work well. You only ever get this with negative emotions. You don't need to do this when you feel happy or you feel good. And that's why I learned this skill, so that I could learn how to process my negative emotions instead of just going to escapism or video games or social media like I used to. Right? It has been quite a valuable skill in my life. Being able to allow the emotions to flow through my body and just observe them in their nature without judgment. I remember just repeating the word to myself, allow, just saying aloud would help me to process that emotion. Another principle that I learned from the book was stop trying to be happy, and I've struggled with this a lot, right? I would get a negative emotion and I'd try to like think of something motivational in my mind to get me through it, but that had actually worsened the emotion. What I do now is I just be aware of the emotion, acknowledge that it's painful and it's uncomfortable and it just sucks, and then just continue with life and continue with my day. Your negative emotions get amplified when you try and force yourself to be happy, right? Instead of just feeling bad, now you feel really bad. I remember that I used to try and like play a song in my head to get myself to feel happy and to increase morale and make myself feel motivated, but that literally just made it all worse. Right, you've got to acknowledge that it's painful. And that's where I am now. I just acknowledge that it's uncomfortable. Be aware of it for like 2 seconds. Acknowledge that it cannot control you. And then get on with the rest of your day. And then you will find that that emotion just dissipates anyway. It just goes away anyway. Because you haven't amplified it. Another principle from the book again. This book is literally like the Bible for mental health, right? I've referenced it 3 times in this video now. I've read it twice as well. I would highly recommend that you go and read it. But she also mentions in the book what your upper limit is. She mentions that humans are wired to be comfortable. We're not wired for discomfort, right? Discomfort is necessary for us, but we feel so uncomfortable because that is our upper limit. We feel uncomfortable when we're unfamiliar with something. This can manifest itself as sadness, pain, anger, fear. I find that it manifests itself a lot in my body as fear, right? It had happened in the worst cases in my life when I had just kind of shocked myself into doing something that was too big for me instead of just taking it slow and easy and progressively overloading and stacking on a bit and a bit on top of each other every day. Another mental model that I've learned from the YouTuber First Man that he posted in a private video in a paid community that I'm in was stay in the trenches. I'll give you an example. I was at work this Wednesday and Thursday on a 5-hour shift and then a 6-hour shift on Thursday. And I was just really dreading the work, right? Everyone feels this when they're forced to do work that they don't really want to do. I was just on like hour 3 or hour 4 and I just wanted my break. And then when I got my break, I just had this moment of realization of the dread I was just in. I just thought to myself I could have survived that if I just pushed harder. Right, this is the example of your upper limit. Your body will do anything to rewire itself to bring you back to a state of comfort. Like another example is maybe you're working out and then you're just thinking to yourself, or in the middle of like a 30 rep squat or whatever, and you're just thinking to yourself, oh my god, I'm gonna die, this is so hard. And then you stop and then you're like, oh, it was just hard. Right, I could have pushed harder on that. That's the thing. I've used this mental model when I am going through pain and adversity. I've realized that this pain is necessary and that I need to stay in the trenches of life, right? Because that's where growth comes from. This just helps with controlling those chaotic emotions of, oh my god, I'm gonna die, the world is ending, this isn't working for me. I've just reminded myself that I'm gonna have that moment of realization that I could have. I just remind myself while I'm going through pain and adversity that I'm gonna have that moment of realization that I could have just pushed harder and gone for it harder if I do stop because it got too hard, right? And that's why I just keep going, and that really just helps with that emotional upper limit. I want to talk about how my mental strength has increased as I've exposed myself to pain and adversity. Mental strength I've found is like stress, right? It's anti-fragile. It grows when exposed to pressure. And like I'll say again, I used to be really mentally weak. I used to get like angry and sad over the smallest things. I remember in August of 2025, I didn't have my driver's license, and my mum was going for this full-time job, and dad was also in a full-time job. So I had to bike all the way to the gym and bike all the way back for like a whole month because I had no one to drive me there. And that was quite painful. That was quite a painful period in my life that had caused quite a lot of growth in my life as well. I am quite proud that I went through that phase in my life, or that I was forced to, because I wanted to go to the gym every day. These moments in my life where I was in this like state of pain, where I thought I was gonna cry because it was so painful, they don't go to waste, right? They haven't gone to waste. They have made me stronger. I'm so grateful that I went through that period in August of 2025 where I had to bike to the gym downhill, work out, bike all the way back uphill, and it was just really painful. It had kept me in my upper limit for just so long. And I've also found that my mental strength increases when I force myself to do something instead of when someone else forces me to do something, right? Because I have this job right now. I haven't found that my mental strength actually really increases that much when I do it, and it is quite a difficult job, right? It is quite hard work. Mondays, Saturdays and Sundays are quite hard because it's quite busy. Things have to be moving faster. It's literally cardio. I've only ever found that my mental strength has increased when I've forced myself to do something, such as riding to the gym and back, not when someone else forces me to do something. Because we can all remember, like in school, we were forced to do things in school that we didn't want to do. That never really made us mentally stronger, right? It was in my responsibility to build that mental strength for myself. I have come a long way, but I still do think I've got a longer way to go. The conclusion that I want to make to this is that it just takes discipline, right? This is the harsh truth. It just takes discipline and hard work and grit to gain this emotional strength. The discipline to not give into your emotions. The discipline that I had to use to not give into my anger when I felt injustice. Because anger is literally just the byproduct of feeling injustice, I've found. Yeah, it just takes discipline to grow this skill, right? It has definitely been a long and painful journey for me, but I am quite proud of what I've been able to achieve.